Hey guys, this is 5.8, the last lesson in Unit 4, and we're going to talk about solving equations by factoring. So we've gone over all the different ways to factor, and now we're just going to take each of those factors that you found, set them equal to 0, and find what x equals when they are set equal to 0. Okay. Polynomial equations are equations that set two polynomials equal to 0. Or sorry, equations that set two polynomials equal to each other. But a standard form has a 0 on one side of the equation. And what we're doing today is solving, which means what number can be substituted for the variable x to make this equation true. Okay. Quadratic equations, which also just means a squared equation, are polynomial equations of degree 2. Okay. So to solve polynomial equations, we want to write the equation in standard form so that one side of the equation is equal to 0. Okay. Then we will factor it completely. Then we will set each factor containing a variable equal to 0, solve that equation, and check the solutions into the original equation. Okay. Sounds like a lot, but we're going to go over it. The reason that we can solve by setting equal to 0 is because of the 0 factor property. If a and b are real numbers, and if a multiplied by b equals 0, then either a equals 0 or b equals 0, right? Because I can't multiply two things together and get 0 unless one of them was already 0. So this quantity times this quantity is true, equals 0 is true because one of them is 0, right? I know they are multiplied together because of this side-by-side parentheses. There's no plus and there's no minus, right? So when I have two factors, these would be two factors, factor 1 and factor 2, two things I multiply together to get the answer. When I have two factors and the answer is 0, I set each factor equal to 0 and solve these two factors for the variable, the smaller equation. So I say x minus 4 is 0 and x plus 2 is 0. Okay. X minus 4 is 0 means I add 4 to each side. X is 4. X plus 2 is 0 means I subtract 2 from each side. X is negative 2. Okay, so either x equals 4 or x equals negative 2 for this statement. Let's find out if those are true by checking our answers in the original equation. Okay, so I have x minus 4, and instead of x, I'm going to just put in one of my two solutions. 4 minus 4 times x plus 2. 4 plus 2, 0. Now I'll try my other one. 4, oops, sorry. It cannot be 4. That has to be a negative 2 minus 4. And this has to be a negative 2 plus 2. And that also equals 0. So those answers check. All right, let's practice. So we have x squared minus 5x equals 24. The first thing I want to do is put this into standard form. This is not in standard form because it is not set equal to 0. So to set it equal to 0, I'm going to subtract 24 from both sides. Now I have x squared minus 5x minus 24 equals 0. Okay. Now I need to factor. And we've been factoring this whole unit. So we're just relying on those skills, okay? Including, so can I see any way to factor out a greatest common factor? No, nothing in common. Can I see how to factor 24 and 5? Not really. So I'm just going to do this. It needs to multiply to equal negative 24. and it needs to add to equal -5. I'm going to factor it by grouping. The factors of -24 are -1, +24, +1, -24, -2, +12, +2, -12, -3, +8, +3, -8, and -4, +6, and +4, -6. Do any of those add up to give me a -5? I think so. I think if I add 3 and -8, I can get a -5. So instead of -5x, I'm going to replace it with 3x and -8x. So I have x squared plus 3x minus 8x minus 24 is now 0. Okay. Still nothing I can factor out. And so I'm going to use factor by grouping. X squared plus 3x. What can I take out of there? They have a common factor of x. So that will be x squared divided by x is x. 3x divided by x is +3. Now I have minus 8x minus 24, so I have to put the minus. I can divide both of those by 8. So 8 is my factor. So that I'm left with x. This I'm left with a +3 equals 0. Okay. Now same thing, x plus 3. And then I'm left with x minus 8 equals 0. So the only difference between this and what we're doing in other classes is now it's equal to 0. So now I'm going to set each of those equal to 0. X plus 3 is 0. X minus 8 is 0. So here x is -3. Here x is +8. And let's check our answer. So we have -3 squared minus 5 times -3. Oops. -3 squared minus 5 times -3 is 24. Good. And our other one is 8. So we have 8 squared minus 5 times 8 is 24. Both of those answers check. Those are both good answers. Example 2. 3x squared minus 29x minus 30 equals 0. It is already in standard form, so it is ready to be factored. So we're going to factor it by grouping, right? 3x squared minus 29x minus 30x minus 30. All right, so factoring by grouping, same thing. It has to multiply to equal, but because a is 3, we have to multiply a times c. So that was -90. Because it was 3 times -30, and it has to add to equal -29. Is there any number that multiplies to -90 and adds to -30? So our factors are 1 and 90. One will be positive, one will be negative. We have 2 and 45. We have 3 and 30. That was almost. We have 5 and 15. Sorry, 5 and 18. And we have 6 and 15. And we have 9 and 10. But I don't think any of those add to -29. So we just have to call this prime. Example 4, we want to start by putting it into standard form, okay? So you can either get rid of the parentheses first, or you can move the -2 first, it doesn't matter, okay? I'll start with the parentheses. So x times 5x is 5x squared. X times -7 is -7x. And now I'm going to move that -2 over. So now I have 5x squared minus 7x plus 2 equals 0. Okay. So what are my factors? I have a times c is 5 times 2. So 5 times 2 is 10. So it needs to multiply to equal 10 x squared. And it needs to add to equal -7. Okay. -7x. So if it's adding to a negative and it's multiplying to a positive, that means both factors have to be negative. So it could be -1 and -10x. Or it could be -2x and -5x. Do either of those work? Yes. This one works. So instead of -7x, I'm going to put -2x and -5x. 5x squared minus 5x minus 2x plus 2 equals 0. So instead of the 7, I have the -5 and the -2. Now I'm going to factor by grouping. 5x squared minus 5x. I can take out a 5x. 5x squared divided by 5x is x. -5x divided by 5x is -1. -2x plus 2. I can take out a -2. I get a positive x. 2 divided by -2 is a -1. So each of those have factored out x minus 1. So I take out the x minus 1 and I have left the 5x minus 2 is 0. X minus 1. X minus 1 is 0, and or 5x minus 2 is 0. Okay, so that becomes x is 1. This is 5x equals 2 divided by 5. X is 2/5. Okay, and now we can check our answer by saying 1 times 5 times 1 minus 7 is -2, and 2/5 times 5 times 2/5 minus 7 is -2. Let's see if that is true. So we have 1 times 5 times 1 minus 7 is -2. 2/5 times 5 times 2/5 minus 7 is -2. They check. Okay. Solve 4x times the quantity 8x plus 9. So first we need to put it into standard form. 4x times 8x is 32x squared. 4x times a positive 9 is 36x. I need to move that 5 over so it becomes a -5. 32x squared plus 36x minus 5 equals 0. 32 and -5 turn into a -160, so it needs to multiply to equal -160 x squared, and it needs to add to equal 36x, right? So the factors of 160 are 1 and 160. 2 and 80, 3, oops, sorry, it's not 3, 4 and 40. Ooh, and it should be 1 positive, 1 negative, right? So if I say it is a positive 40 and a negative 4x, I'll get positive 36x. So 32x squared minus 4x plus 40x minus 5 equals 0. 32 and 4x, 32x squared and negative 4x, I can take out the 4x. 32 divided by 4 is 8. X squared divided by x is x. Negative 4x divided by 4x is just a negative 1. Now I have a 40x and a negative 5. So plus 5, I can divide them both by 5. 40 divided by 5 is 8x. Negative 5 divided by 5 is negative 1. So now I have 8x minus 1 as my factor. And I have left 4x plus 5. So now I say 8x plus 1 is 0 and 4x plus 5 is 0. 8x is negative 1 divided by 8 divided by 8. X is negative 1/8. 4x plus 5 becomes 4x is negative 5 becomes x is negative 5/4. Okay, let's check that. So if we check it, it will be 4 times negative 1/8 times 8 times negative 1/8 plus 9 equals 5. 4 times negative 1/8 times 8 times negative 1/8 plus 9. 4 times negative 1/8 times 8 times negative 1/8 plus 9. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake here. So here it said 8x minus 1, but here I wrote 8x plus 1. So that should actually be a plus 1/8. That is a minus 1. Okay. So I'll delete that negative sign. See what we get. We get 5. All right. And then we'll do it again. 4 times negative 5/4 times 8 times negative 5/4 plus 9 should be 5 again. All right, so the quickest way for me to do this, I think, is to say negative 5/4 5/4, and then I need to insert a negative. Oh no. It was not faster. I always think it's going to be faster and something happens. All right, this is a parentheses, and then this is the negative 5. All right, we got it. Those both work. So x is 1/8 positive and x is negative 5/4. Go on to example 6. Example 6 is in standard form, but now we need to factor it. 3x to the third minus 12x equals 0. I want you to notice there's only 2 terms. So it would be hard to factor by grouping, but there is a greatest common factor. You can divide 3 by 3 and you can divide negative 12 by 3. You can divide x to the third by x, and you can divide x by x. So I'm going to say 3x is my greatest common factor, and that leaves me with x squared minus 4 equals 0. So now these are my two terms. So I say 3x is 0, x is 0, and x squared minus 4 is 0, x squared is 4. Here we go. Square root plus or minus. X is plus or minus the square root of 4. The square root of 4 is 2. So I have two answers. X is -2. X is 2. Okay. Another way to do this would be 3x times x squared minus 4 equals 0. You know that this is the difference of two squares, so you can rewrite it as 3x times x plus 2 times x minus 2 equals 0. And so then you still get here, you get x is 0. Here you get x is -2. And here you get x is 2. So you get the same answer. It depends on whether you want to use the radical or you want to use the difference of two squares. Okay. But let's find out if we have a good answer. So I turned off right at that same moment. 3 times 0 squared minus 12 times 0 is 0. 3 times -2, ooh, sorry, to the third. Minus 12 times -2 is 0. I'm going to type that in again. I'm going to delete the negative sign. And it's still 0. So this I entered in wrong, so I should probably do it the correct way. So it's 3 times 0 to the third minus 12 times 0. You still get 0. So these are all three good answers. All right, example 7. A model rocket is launched from the ground. Its height h in feet at time t seconds is approximated by the equation h equals -16t squared plus 112t. So t is time in seconds, h is height. If I know how many seconds this rocket was in the air, I can figure out its height, right? They want you to find out how long it takes the rocket to return to the ground. Okay, so we are looking for t. We are looking for t, and to return to the ground means we want our height at 0, right? When it's above the ground, 0 feet. Okay, so we're just going to substitute 0 in for h and solve for t. So 0 is -16t squared plus 112t. Okay, that's already in standard form. And we want to find a common factor, 112 and -16. Can I divide 112 by 16? I can. So my greatest common factor would be 0 equals -16t. -16t squared divided by -16 gives me t. 112t divided by -16t gives me 7, but it would be a -7, right? So here are my two factors, -16t and t minus 7. -16t equals 0, so t equals 0. And t minus 7 equals 0, so t equals 7. So how long does it take the rocket to return to the ground? T is time, times 0 or times 7. Time 0 is probably when it leaves the ground, right? It's launched from the ground at t equals 0 seconds. And then it comes back down at t equals 7 seconds. All right. Next one, we have the Pythagorean theorem. In a right triangle, the sum of the squares, means that little 2 up there, of the lengths of the triangle of the two legs is equal to the square of the length of the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is the longest leg of a triangle, of a right triangle. So we have leg A squared plus leg B squared equals the hypotenuse squared. We also call it just A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And we know the hypotenuse is always C. So we'll call this A, we'll call this B. A squared plus B squared equals C squared, okay? That's what we need to know for this problem. For example 8, find the length of the shorter leg, that's this guy, of a right triangle if the longer leg is 10 miles more than the shorter leg and the hypotenuse is 10 miles less than twice the shorter leg. So for this, we usually say that the shortest leg would be like the A, right? And then B is a little bit longer, and then C is the longest, okay? So I'm just gonna plug these into A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I'm not gonna forget the squared. So I have x squared for A squared plus B is x plus 10. X plus 10 squared equals 2x minus 10 squared. I'm gonna FOIL this out. X squared plus x plus 10 times x plus 10 equals 2x minus 10 times 2x minus 10. So that becomes x squared plus x squared is the first one, plus 10x is the second one, plus 10x is the third part of FOIL, plus 100 equals 2 times 2x is 4x squared minus 20x minus 20x plus 100. Okay, so I was just using FOIL for these two and these two. Okay, now I'm going to combine like terms. X squared and 4x squared are all like terms. So that becomes 2x squared, and over here that says 4x squared. Then we've got (10x) and 10x and negative 20x and negative 20x. So now we have plus 20x and minus 40x. And then plus 100. I think those stay the same. Plus 100 equals plus 100. Okay. To solve, so I want to find out the length of the shortest leg, or I want to find x, right? So now I need to put it into standard form and factor it in order to find x, okay? So I'm going to move everything over, and I'm going to move it to the right a because I like my leading term, my biggest exponent, to be positive. 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to subtract the 2x squared. I'm going to subtract the 20x. And I'm even going to subtract the 100 so that I just have a 0 over here. Okay, so all of these cancel. And I just have 0 equals 4x squared minus 2x squared is 2x squared. Negative 40x minus 20x becomes negative 60x. And then the 100 and minus 100 cancel. Okay, so now I have 20x squared minus 60x equals 0. And just like the last one, we took out, negative 16t. We can take out a greatest common factor here. It would be 2x, right? So now it's 0 equals 2x times x minus 30. Do you see that? Because 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times negative 30 is negative 60x. So that becomes 2x equals 0. X is 0. And x minus 30 equals 0. X equals 30. They are asking us the length of the shortest leg of a triangle. Do you think and it's x is equal to x. Can the length be 0 or can the length be 30? Or can the length be both? Well, if this had a length of 0, this shape wouldn't be a triangle, right? So the length of the shortest leg of the triangle is 30 miles. Find the length of the shorter leg of a right triangle. It is 30 miles long. All right, and that is just another way that you can use factoring to solve real-world problems. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Have a good one.